And you're live on Prime Morning. Many thanks for staying with us. This is Beyond the Headlines with me, Daniel Dazi. Now, last week, the Special Prosecutor, Kissi Agyebeng, was sworn in by President Akufo-Addo. Of course, we all followed the the short stint at post by Martin Amidu, his controversial resignation, and then the nomination of Kissi Agyebeng. That vetting where he received a lot of plaudits, even from members of the Appointments Committee of Parliament, soon after he's been sworn in. Now, the Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability, ASEPA, calls it an end to his honeymoon. They say, Mr. Agyebeng, get to work and get to work now. And we've been joined by the Executive Director for ASEPA, Mensa Thompson, who'll be telling us exactly what they mean and what they have done to end this honeymoon. Mensa Thompson, thanks for joining us.
Daniel, many thanks for having me.
Right, you'd have to unmute your microphones for me, Mensa. Yeah. So it was a bit, yes. Now I can't hear. And I don't know if this is from my end, though, if we can quickly look at that. We are looking at that. Mr. Thompson, will come to you in just a moment. Just crave your indulgence for a second, because we have an update on the Sputnik V vaccine saga. I'm just going to bring you this in 2 minutes. There's a letter that has surfaced, which is said to be from the office of Sheikh Ahmed Dalmouk Al Maktoum, who is the one who was supplying us the Sputnik V vaccines. He says he has paid the $2,470,000, which we requested as the refunding of monies we paid to him for forwarding 300,000 vaccines. So that letter is out. We'll bring in that letter very, very shortly. Great. So that's what you have on your screen. Let me just read it. It says, please reciprocate my best wishes to the Honorable Minister. Of course, he's sending this to the Chief Director of the Health Ministry. He says, we acknowledge the receipt of your letter dated 10th August 2021 regarding the refund of the balance of payments to the government of Ghana for the supply of the Sputnik V vaccine. It says the requested amount, $2,470,000, has already been refunded to the designated bank account as communicated by you. Right? The SWIFT and payment advice is attached for your perusal, your reference and record. It says we also confirm that funds have ever been drawn under the LC. Kindly note that the LC stands expired since June 2021, and we look forward to working in future endeavors with you, the ministry and your governments, to further enhance bilateral relations between our two brotherly countries. Accept my highest commitment and in this regard. It says it's signed Sheikh Ahmed Dalmouk Al Maktoum, member of the ruling family of Dubai, United Arab Emirates. And the SWIFT advice is attached. Right. So let me go back to Mr. Thompson now. Hoping that the lines are better now. Mr., how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I am blessed. I am blessed. So yes, you want to come in on this frontiers matter. I know that is what you have petitioned the Special Prosecutor on, but I'll crave your indulgence. Sheikh Ahmed has sent a letter that he's paid the money. Does this end the matter for you?
Absolutely not. It doesn't end the matter. If anything at all, this is actually the beginning of the matter. This matter did not start with the payment of money. I think that the problems we encountered right from the beginning, if you look at the issues that were coming up before the ad hoc committee or the parliamentary probe, was the fact that some processes in respect of public procurement, in respect of the Financial Administration Act, in respect of usurping the powers of Parliament, contrary to Article 18215, to sign an international agreement with a third party. That was the critical issues, and actually not the payment of the money. The payment of the money actually made the whole issue worse, and it added some financial loss to it. Now we've been able to recover the money. It's left with the remedies for the public procurement, remedies for the violations of the public procurement laws. The remedy for violating Article 18215 is not a refund. That's not a remedy. And in our constitution, attempted crime is also a crime. If you pick up a knife and try to stab somebody, and you are not able to stab the person, people hold you and take the knife out of your hands. The law does not say that because you couldn't stab the person, you should go scot-free. No. In fact, the law will prosecute you for attempted murder. And so I think that this is actually the beginning of the matter.
Okay.
The end game is to ensure that public office holders who are taking decisions on our behalf, the decisions that they are taking on our behalf, they are following the due processes, they are doing their due diligence, and they are making sure that these agreements that they are signing are on behalf of, in the best interest of the country. And so what example do we want to serve to these public office holders? That you can take the country's money, usurp or sideline all the public procurement processes, go out and sign contract with somebody and pay money to them. When we catch you, we just ask you to refund the money and that's all. Is that the lesson we want to send to public office holders in this country?
So Agyebeng must still go, from what you're saying?
Yes, and this issue, I find it difficult to restrict this issue only to Mr. Agyebeng, because anybody who understands the administrative procedures and in terms of payment procedures of government, the processes which things go through before government of Ghana can disburse money or can release funds for any form of payment, will know that this issue is absolutely beyond Mr. Agyebeng. Actually, you have to look at the role played by the finance minister as well, the role played by the accountant general, and also the role played by the Bank of Ghana. So it's a whole chain of people whose violations of the law or lack of due diligence and due processes led to this whole issue. And so not just Mr. Agyebeng, a number of people must go with him. A number of people must be investigated and prosecuted alongside him. And so that is how this conversation must happen. Let us not restrict it to Mr. Agyebeng alone, because there are a number of people. Again, if you listen very carefully to some key person in government, one of them is Mr. Kenoforiata, the other is President Akufo-Addo himself. There seems to be some sympathy from the government towards the plight of Mr. Agyebeng, and that is only founded on just one principle. You see, anybody who knows the dealings of a government knows that Mr. Agyebeng could never have usurped the powers of cabinet and gone to sign this contract without the backing of the president. It's absolutely not possible. It is not possible.
But he went before a parliamentary ad hoc committee and stated that he did this on his own. He did not consult cabinet.
That is not true. He knows it.
And he did not consult parliament.
He knows that that is not true. And he knows that that is not the only lie he told at the committee. That is not the only untruth he told at the committee. The other one was in respect of the payment of money, when he alluded before the committee that monies were not paid. But I'm saying that... But
we don't have any evidence that was untrue as well.
Daniel, it's not about having evidence. It's not about having evidence. It's about knowing how government procedures work. Cabinet is the highest decision-making body of the executive. No minister can usurp the powers of cabinet to sign an international agreement and pay money.
But Mr. Thompson, when you say it's not about evidence, it's difficult for us to follow, because evidence is the name of the game. On this platform, when we speak, we must provide evidence.
Daniel, sometimes you can just connect the dots. And I'm saying that Mr. Agyebeng is at post because he could not have done what he did without a clear indication or backing from the president.
Okay, that's what you believe. You say he could not have done it. That's what you believe, and
without
it's fair.
The backing
if that's how you feel, it is not
possible. And that is why
I just want to ask this question. If that's how you feel,
he feels pity for Mr. Agyebeng.
Why did you not petition
the president said
the Special Prosecutor's Office, Mr. Thompson? on this particular issue?
That is why the president says he feels pity for Mr. Agyebeng because he may have given some clear indication for him to go ahead or some backing for him to go ahead. But now when the issue came, it is Mr. Agyebeng whose head is on the chopping board. And so anybody who understands how government processes work, you think that a minister will pass behind cabinet, will pass behind parliament, will pass behind the president and go and sign a contract, and the minister will still be at post.
We are still dwelling on we are still dwelling on the conjecture, Mr. Thompson. If it's your belief that it could not have happened, it can only stay as your belief. My question is, why didn't you then petition the Special Prosecutor's Office or even the CID to investigate this matter if that is your belief?
No, Daniel, this issue hasn't ended. This issue is only beginning. And when the ad hoc committee report came, we wrote to the Attorney General that, look, based on the adverse findings made by the ad hoc committee of Parliament alone, the Attorney General could initiate criminal investigation and subsequent prosecution in respect of this matter. So we wrote a letter drawing the Attorney General's attention to this whole matter so that the Attorney General can initiate action on this. We gave the Attorney General an ultimatum of 48 hours, which elapsed by close of day yesterday. In fact, yesterday afternoon, we wrote a reminder or a notification to the Attorney General on what the status of that, criminal investigation prosecution is. We are still waiting for a response. But if you saw our letter we wrote to the Special Prosecutor yesterday, we had indicated that by close of week, if we do not hear any tangible response from the Office of the Attorney General, we will petition the Special Prosecutor as well in respect of this matter. Okay. But, David, I think that we need to do things in order of importance. Yes, this Sputnik V vaccine is very important. The country, have expended monies and what have you. But the graveness of the Frontier Health contract is no way compared to the Sputnik contract. The money the country is losing and the level of corruption that we suspect in the Frontier Health Services contract with the Ghana Airport Company is nowhere near what we are experiencing with this procurement of COVID vaccines or Sputnik vaccines. And so we need to do things in order of importance. This Frontier Health Service contract has become one of the most shady, opaque contracts in the history of the Fourth Republic. That the government of Ghana, through the Ghana Airport Company Limited, has entered into what we call a joint agreement, a partnership agreement with Frontier Health Services to provide testing of COVID-19 at Kotoka International Airport. And up to date, none of the sector ministers claims they know any knowledge about that contract. And we all saw it at the vetting. When the issue came up at the vetting committee, the health minister said he's not aware. The finance minister says he's not aware. The minister for foreign affairs says he's not aware. And so, is it ghosts who came to sign this contract on our behalf?
Did they not state that it was a Ghana Airport Company that actually signed this contract with Frontier?
Yeah. Yes, if Ghana Airport signed this contract, then the Minister of Health should be able to tell us that it is Ghana Airport Company Limited who signed the contract. And also, these are the people who represented Ghana in the negotiations and in the signing of the contract. Do we have that information? Daniel, as we speak, have you cited that Frontier's contract? You're a journalist in this country. This country has signed an agreement with Frontier Health Services to provide COVID testing at our airport. And as we speak, even members of parliament do not have copies or access to that contract. What kind of shady business is this? And so the issue of the lack of transparency in COVID expenditures, in COVID contracts, or COVID-related transactions is a serious matter which we need to pay attention to, because international bodies and other organizations are expending huge sums of money to support us in this fight. Then we go and sign the contract. We say it's a partnership agreement. The country makes $17 million. Then only $1 million comes to the country, and $60 million goes to Frontiers. Who are the owners of Frontiers? And why can Ghana Airport Company Limited negotiate a partnership arrangement for testing at our airport? And out of $17 million, they could get just a fraction, a paltry $1 million. Who does that? Who did that negotiation? Before Frontiers came into the picture, Nukuti was doing this thing for almost free. Even at that time, the materials for the testing of the COVID vaccines have not developed. They were going through proper, long processes to do the testing. Now, luckily, there are rapid test kits that have been developed all over the place, which could be used to do the testing, which people are carrying about. What stopped government of Ghana from procuring a huge chunk of some of these, rapid test kits and give it to Noguchi to do the testing at our airport? Why do you go and bring an international person or somebody, a foreigner, and give this contract to him to work in millions of dollars at the expense of the state?
Right.
And so there's a whole lot of shadiness associated with this contract, procurement more practices, and even issues of money laundering, which we have asked the special prosecutor to probe into that as well.
And these are your suspicions that you want the special prosecutor to look at. Some of the questions you have raised, I must say, were raised by the VG, the Norwegian journalists who looked at this COVID vaccine procurement in the first place. And my memory serves me well. They did say that this Frontiers company is owned by another company, which is owned by another company, which is registered in the Dominican Republic, which, because it's a tax haven, does not reveal who its directors are. So that's as far as we know. And I'm just saying this to say that there are questions indeed that a lot of people are curious to ask. However, Mr. Kissi Agyebeng was sworn into office about a week ago. You yourself, in your release that you put out, you said you're ending his honeymoon. Why not wait just a few more days? I mean, just a few more weeks for him to settle in the office, for him to know his left from his right, before you send this his way?
Yes, Daniel, and we have apologized, sincerely to Mr. Agyebeng for interrupting his honeymoon, for catching him at a very bad moment. We know he needs time to settle in, and so this may have caught him at a very bad moment or at a very wrong moment. But Daniel, he's sworn in as a special prosecutor, and I'm sure he knows the exigencies of the time that we live in. And like he properly demonstrated during his vetting, his commitment and willingness to fight corruption is quite something that was properly substantiated at his vetting. And we have absolute confidence in him that he would get to work immediately, because there's a number of things, Daniel, a number of things that needs to be investigated, especially COVID-related transactions, because some people are taking this pandemic as a whole cash cow to milk the state and to sign some unacceptable contracts and doing all manner of things, at the expense of the state. And so the exigencies of the time do not allow us to also allow the special prosecutor to enjoy some honeymoon. Right. And I know that he will understand us, in this particular matter.
There is, however, a concern of capacity, because remember that Mr. Amidou, when he was at the office, had just a few investigators to help him. He was even raising issues about the building to house the Office of Special Prosecutor. All of these are issues that he has to deal with. So there are logistical challenges, there are human resource challenges that Mr. Kissi Agyebeng has to deal with. We don't even know if for an investigation the size of Frontiers, he would have the capacity to deal with it properly, so-called. Remember that Martin Amidou was petitioned on another matter, which, pardon me, it escapes me, and he stated clearly that, look, I don't have the capacity to deal with it currently, so I would have to wait on this one. Are we sure that Mr. Agyebeng can deal with it properly now?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, if you look critically at the Special Prosecutor Act, we believe that Mr. Agyebeng has absolute jurisdiction in this matter. And concerning the issues that we have raised, in terms of this contract, we believe that he has enough capacity to go into it. The issue about technical capacity, then I wish that we will be able to, for just a minute, forget about Mr. Martin Amidou, because he was very disappointing in that office, and we wouldn't want to let his disappointment cast a slur on the potential of Mr. Agyebeng. We have so much confidence in Mr. Agyebeng. We did so for Mr. Amidou at the beginning, until he proved to us that he didn't have, that strong commitment or that efficiency that we thought he would have in that office. And so I would refrain I'll refrain from, always trying to link Mr. Agyebeng to the weaknesses and the failures of Mr. Hamidu. Let's open a fresh page of the Office of the Special Prosecutor with Mr. Agyebeng as the Special Prosecutor, and let's give him the opportunity to also prove himself. And we are very much confident that if anything, looking at his vetting, is to go by, then we believe that Mr. Agyebeng could exert some influence and some sense of, efficiency in that office, and some level of productivity in that office. And so we are hopeful that Mr. Agyebeng will make a difference in that office. So let's forget about Mr. Hamidu for a moment.
When you say forget about Mr. Hamidu for a moment, I find it quite curious because this is someone who served in the NDC administration. This is someone that the circumstances of his exit of the Special Prosecutor's office was pointed at as, the proof for some that President Akufo-Addo is indeed a corrupt person, and that administration was corrupt. That Ejapa deal was shady. That deal is a deal that you've been very, very vocal about as ASEPA. Are we saying then that we should ignore Mr. Hamidu's findings on Ejapa, his allegations against the President and the Finance Minister?
No, Daniel, what I'm saying is that Mr. Hamidu stayed in office for too long to complain. He stayed on too long to complain. And I was happy this matter came up at Mr. Agyebeng's vetting. And he said that if at any point in time, if he feels that the government of the day is not giving him the freedom and independence to do his job, he will resign. And that was what we expected from Mr. Hamidu long ago. You can't stay in office for 30 months, draw budgetary allocations, expend public funds, achieve absolutely nothing, and come out and blame people. We can't have pity on Mr. Hamidu. I'm sorry. We are of the view that he stayed on too long to complain.
So we should ignore the mother serpent of corruption comments and the rest of that?
I'm saying we should give Mr. Kissi Agyebeng a very fresh start. We shouldn't let the failures of Mr. Hamidu hang on his head for a moment. Otherwise, it will have a very dire psychological impact on him. If Mr. Hamidu is the standard in respect of the Office of the Special Prosecutor, then I'm sorry, the office should be scrapped. And so let's open a fresh chapter for Mr. Agyebeng, for him to also, prove himself in that office, and let's see what he will bring on board. And we are very much hoping that Mr. Agyebeng, if given the chance, could prove to be quite different and efficient than Mr. Hamidu. And so let's not allow that to hang on his neck. And let us not constantly remind him that his predecessor failed. I think that Mr. Agyebeng knows himself. It was in this country, he saw, the agitations that happened and the public criticisms and the scrutinies and all that. I'm sure he understands the critical position that he finds himself in now. And he knows that he cannot afford to repeat the same mistakes of his predecessor. And so I'm sure he's taking all these things in. And so let's give him that space. Let's forget about Mr. Hamidu's era. Mr. Hamidu's era is gone. It didn't produce anything significant as far as the fight against corruption is concerned. It didn't produce anything. And so we have somebody new. Let's give him a fresh plate to also show us whether he can make some significant impact in the fight against corruption. Then we can judge him based on that and not on the failures of his predecessor.
So how long are you willing to give Mr. Agyebeng to deal with this matter, or at least for you to hear from him, especially considering the reality or the fact that he still has to set up his office, he still has to hire staff?
No, the office is set up. The only person who was gotten rid of was Mr. Hamidu. Mr. Kissi is not now going to build a new office. I was in the office yesterday. He has staff. But in terms of investigation, the law allows him to request assistance from the other security agencies and other offices of accountability in respect of investigations. So if he needs, people temporarily to help him with the investigations and what have you, he has the purview to ask for those things. And so that is not really a problem. I think that he knows the agency of this matter. He knows, even before he came to this office, that this Frontiers Health Services contract has been brewing for a long time, and the number of issues associated with it, people have raised questions. The whole contract has been opaque, absolutely no sense of transparency. And so he knows this. And so I'm sure he'll give it a very critical attention. And we know that hopefully before the month ends, Mr. Agyebeng will get something substantial for Mr. Agyebeng. I'm very hopeful.
And so you mentioned that you went to his office. Have you spoken to Mr. Agyebeng yourself?
I haven't spoken to him, but I've spoken to other people in his office.
Okay.
He wasn't there yesterday when we went there.
That's fine. Just out of curiosity. So if by the end of the month you've not heard anything on this, is there another step, or you're willing to give him the benefit of the doubt?
Yes, like you said, the exigencies of the time, and the fact that he has to settle in. And so, yes, we can allow a few delays here and there. But I think that the level of urgency that he will approach the matter will let us know whether we need to give him more time or not. And so we will just wait and see when he's going to respond to this petition.
Mr. Thompson, thank you very much for joining us. He's the Executive Director for the Alliance for Social Equity and Public Accountability. You're live on Prime Morning. This is Beyond the Headlines. I want to take a quick breather. When I come back, I'll give you the chance to take a bite on these issues that we've been discussing so far. We'll open the phone lines and then we'll make way for Najele Doku to take us into Social Watch. Stay with us. We'll be right back.